Our last panel of the day, last panel of the summit. We made it. This is our third year for this panel. I'm very excited everyone came together and I'm so grateful. We're gonna get a delivery of beer and then we'll get started. I like beer chats. This might be a format. We might have to start this at like 10 in the morning. It'll be good.
Still with beer, right?
Yeah. All right. People are funneling in. I like it. Have a seat. Hi, Jason. All right. Here comes Chase with our beers. Oh, you even put koozies on them. This is quite the service. Let's start here. All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. I feel like we should cheers.
Cheers.
Oh, cheers. Good job, gentlemen. Thank you. All right. Well, gentlemen, thank you for joining me. Last panel of the day. I'm so proud to introduce Nathan Bazley, Brian Doman, AJ Wedding, and Justin Diener? Diener, I said it right. Thank you. We're here to talk about virtual production and all things that happen in 2024 and all things moving forward into 2025. We also have a reel from all their stages. So I'm going to kick off with, we'll kick off with you, Brian. Thank you for hosting us. Really appreciate you guys having us.
It's our pleasure.
What'd you say?
It's our pleasure. It's a terrific event. We're, you and Eric do an amazing job to put together this dynamic thing that everyone just comes together and hangs out.
I know. And we're having beers on stage now.
Exactly.
That's what I like. All right. So, Brian, can you share how virtual production has evolved over the past couple years? I know you started from the very beginning. So how has it evolved, where we're at in 2024, and kind of what are you seeing for 25?
Yeah, I think the evolution is something we've all noticed that, the big standing volumes is a model that didn't quite work, at least not yet. So, Fuse is a company with a history of being able to move gear all over the world. So we focus on, 2024, moving into 2025, flexible deployment of volumes of small, medium, large size, whatever's needed. And I think as far as, content delivery for those volumes, we're looking at photographic sources, 2D, 2.5D, volumetric. The easiest way to get photoreal is to start with photos.
Yeah, to start with photos. That's interesting you said, we started big and now you're seeing that everyone's, you don't need these giant volumes. What are you seeing, Nathan?
Yeah, I think virtual production over 2024 sort of started getting into its more mature phase. Let's sort of call it late teen years, where you're starting to get through a place where you're not running into the same problems over and over again. You're getting more experience in the cohort of people that are operating these stages, and that just gives a certain element of refinement. We all know the kinds of problems we're likely to see. We're all aware of some of the solutions to those. We all know what it works for and what it doesn't, and we're continually challenging and pushing the boundaries on that, which I think makes things a whole lot better for the clients that want to take virtual production on. I think you're absolutely right, Brian. The idea of standing volumes, I think, was one that sort of saw itself under the microscope this year. And, I still believe there is a place for standing volumes, but we really sort of went back to the drawing board as Nant Studios anyway and went, okay, what should a volume look like? And what we sort of came to the conclusion was that it needs to be as flexible and efficient as you can possibly imagine to allow people to be able to craft the volume to what they need rather than expecting them to compromise to suit the technology. And so by leaning into those sort of aspects, and we'll do more of that over 2025, I think we can start to see more people come into the market, more projects applicably apply virtual production within their budget level and within their desired style of execution. And hopefully we can see that tide rise for all boats.
So AJ, does size matter?
I guess depends on who you ask.
So how is it taking it on at your stage?
A lot very similar to what these gentlemen have been saying. I mean, we've been kind of since the beginning of Orbital, we've been going on location for most of our TV work. I think that this past year, we had a TV series, at least one, running off-site since we started until the strike, and then it's just been nothing. Right?
What would you say your percentage offsite is versus?
Well, this year it was 0% offsite, but I would say prior to that, I would say about 70% offsite. And everything that comes into Orbital downtown, our stages are not set up like a Nant or a Fuse where, or actually you guys as well, because you guys are kind of on a lot, right? Where there's all these other sort of facilities for regular soundstage things. And so when people come to us, it's a kind of a one-off, right? You're not going to come park a production at Orbital for months. So that's usually commercials or just smaller projects, which is, again, why for us it's so important to be able to go off-site, because that's the only way we can get good enough business to keep us in business.
And Justin, what's been your approach?
Well, this is the first year that Synapse launched our studio products, and we're located at LA Center Studios. We are the youngest of the group here, and we were able to enter the market understanding where we as filmmakers were experiencing some pain points. And part of the response to that was really taking a filmmaker focused approach, filmmaker first, realizing that virtual production is an absolutely incredible tool that we're going to see a larger and larger adoption for. But, and we say it frequently, it's going to be rare that virtual production is going to be the only tool that the filmmaker is using. So that really influenced how we strategized what we wanted our operation to look like, allowing ourselves to be on a studio lot where there's other sound stages, access to downtown, standing sets, the same way that virtual production is able to centralize so many different resources to the filmmaker, whether it be multiple locations or smaller sets that don't need all this construction. Being on a lot allows you to also centralize just with a larger diameter. So that was a big part of it. Nathan, as you pointed out, understanding flexibility within it too, and what you guys have recently launched or are marketing with the dynamic virtual production approach is something that we considered as well. Being able to have very large, completely mobile, free-moving wild walls so that filmmakers weren't stuck in just a rigid setting, really to be able to allow a director, a cinematographer, a writer, every stakeholder in the creative process to be inspired by the environment that they're in and to be able to adapt to that quickly so that they can realize their vision.
Yeah, speaking of content, let's roll the Fuse reel. Fantastic. For those of you that don't know, stage 2 is actually their car process stage here. So Brian, did you want to tell us about some of those projects we saw, specifically cars as well?
Yeah, so car process is obviously it's a big use for LED technology. It's a bread and butter. It's actually one of the hardest things to do well. So
Can you explain more about the process for car process?
yeah, so it all starts with what are the shots that the filmmaker needs to get? What's the vehicle that's going to be used? We start from there and then design a volume around those shots. It might be hostess tray, it might be over the hood, back. If you need a big, sweeping angle where you're going to move the camera 90 degrees or so, then you need something without seams. So typically, your basic car volume is, 3 or 4.
It's all about the reflectivity and how you can sell the shot. Right?
Yes. Yeah.
Amazing. And I know you guys do a lot of car process well. How are things going over there? You do a lot of commercials at Nant with cars.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's a certain level of, I call it low-hanging fruit within the virtual production space. And car process, I'm sure you would all agree, is just the absolute low-hanging fruit here. It is the thing that everyone, if they're looking to do something in a car for any kind of production, whether it's advertising, film, TV, or anything in between, if you're doing it practically these days, I think you're missing a trick and you're causing yourself a whole lot of headache that you don't need to. The results that you can get using virtual production now are just incredible, and just seeing those reflections, dancing over those reflective surfaces, seeing actors sort of engaged in their scene while completely safe, knowing that you can get that continuity between shots, knowing that you control everything that's around it. I think, car process is just, for all virtual production operators like ourselves, it is something that you just have to know how to do incredibly well and enjoy doing, because you're going to be doing a lot of it. And that's where I think, realistically, we talked about that just a little earlier about virtual production being a tool. I believe over time that virtual production will be a tool that is on every production, but the question is what percentage makes sense from a budgetary point of view, from an execution point of view, how much should you be doing? And car process is one of those areas where you just go straight in the VP bucket.
I definitely want to talk about budgets later in our conversation, but if we could pull up the Nant reel, we'll show a little bit of your content.
Thank you.
So what did we just see there?
Thank you. So if anyone wants to actually see our work, it's on our website, or you can go on YouTube or something like that. That's the teaser for our dynamic volume system, or DVS, that we have operating in our El Segundo studio now. It's our volume 2, so we have one, and I suppose Mandalorian season 1 sort of genre of volume in our volume 1, and then volume 2 is that, a modular system that look, the best way to explain it is we've got some very, very clever engineers that work with Nant Studios, and they've developed a way to make every section of volume wall able to be driven into any position. And so what it gives us is the ability to reconfigure per scene rather than per production, and it gives us the ability to craft the volume to exactly what the client wants. And in the early days of virtual production, we all got used to sort of saying no or asking clients to compromise their vision to fit into whatever we could give them. And the great thing about this is we never have to do that. We can give them exactly what they want. And the great thing is, because you can drive it between spaces, we can run 2 half volumes simultaneously or more, it means that we can tailor the volume to suit their budget as well. So if you want to hire 1 wall pod or 3 or 6 or 8, you can do that, and you can put it in any configuration you want to allow you to fit the creative outlook that you want. So if you want to do a pack shot of cars, 5 or 6 cars in a row, and you want this long, slow arc, but then the next day you want to be able to do something really tied in to do process work, you can do that in the same facility.
Amazing. So Justin, we've seen, everyone understands what virtual production is, I believe now. And, in the early days, we saw a lot of money being pulled from post, bringing it forward to pre. What are you seeing today with your clients, with their budgets, and how they're accounting for using virtual production?
It feels like there's more and more of an awareness and an intent from the beginning stages of clients' exploration into projects to utilize the technology. These guys have been working with clients for 5 years now, right? And it's taken about that long for people to really start to understand the value of the technology. But still, we felt a little late to the game. Starting the studio this year, we still have clients that are some of the world's largest agencies, the largest production companies that have never done virtual production before. They're aware of it. They understand what some of the benefits of it can be, but they don't understand the pricing, and they don't really understand how it's going to impact their art department or production design, how it could create a reduction to savings in lighting or all these other things. That's where we really feel a gratitude for the team that we have and what Synapse can bring to the table, because I was a line producer for 20 years. We have our founders, Duke, who's with me, ran hydraulics, visual effects for 17 years. Rich Lee, an award-winning director. Chris Probst, an award-winning cinematographer. Jeff Knight from Sphere. We're able to offer counterparts to every part of that process and really get in the weeds with them so that we can help them truly understand what the budget is going to look like, how the technology is best applied to any given project or parts of the project. So a shorter answer to your question is that we're seeing more and more awareness to allocate the funds necessary to budget and to go out for virtual production because of previous success within the industry. But there's still a lot of education that needs to happen and the opportunity for a tremendous amount of growth within the industry as well.
That's exactly why we host panels like this. There's many producers in the audience, and we want to showcase what does it look like. So AJ, from your aspect, your clients, are they coming to you earlier now, or how are they looking at their budgets and how are they approaching you?
Such a good question, because it led to us deciding this year that we wanted to have representation. So Orbital's now repped by CAA, and the whole point of that...
Oh, that's interesting. Okay.
Yeah, the whole point of that was for us to get in at an earlier point so that we can talk to people while they're developing projects. We can get to a point where they're considering virtual production from the start rather than maybe it's a solve for a problem they've run into with a practical budget. And that's really opened up a lot of doors for us as far as... very often somebody will come to us and say, well, I don't really know if virtual production is going to help me. Here's my budget. How do you, what are you going to do? Add $2 million?
So they're looking for you to educate them.
Yeah, exactly. And, one of our things is like, look, if virtual production is valuable to you, it shouldn't take away from your budget. You should be able to make your budget work with it. It should be helpful. We were on Justified. Not only was it, fitting within their budget, because it's a very heavy location show. It was also being done still around the time of COVID. And so everyone on that entire set got COVID at some point, and it was never at the same time. So they needed cover sets once a week, and we were the cover sets. So there's that added value that, people don't think about. Or like, we're on location one night, and there's 30 cop cars, and the sun's going to come up in 40 minutes, and the DP is going, we are not getting this shot. Mm-hmm. And because he's been working with us for a while, he goes, oh, wait, I can just shoot a plate, and I can take this back to the stage later. We'll figure it out and not have to come back here with 30 cop cars and 25 extras and whatever else. So I think that, to your point, the education is definitely getting better. I feel like the people that come to us definitely know more. But that was a big part of our outreach with CAA of, hey, introduce us to these people while they're still concepting things. And maybe we can help, concept it better and get them thinking along the lines. And not every project needs virtual production. Like you said, it's just another tool that people can have. But it's incredibly valuable for a lot of situations.
Yeah. Brian, you're an OG in virtual production. So what are the changes you've seen over the years with budgets and how people are approaching you guys at Fuse?
Well, budgets are always a challenge. It was tough in the beginning, certainly, to convince productions that they needed to take money that they were expecting to spend, in post and move it forward and have a 40-week pre-production rather than a 20-week pre-production. So, we got over that hump. Then we had a pandemic.
Yes, we did it.
Yeah, thanks to everyone in this room.
Yes, thank you all.
By the way, how many people are producers in the room?
Oh wow, quite a few.
Okay, a good percentage. Artists, all right, about the same percentage-wise. Mm-hmm. Technical people, we're all technical, right? But yeah, I think we got over that hump. Then we had a pandemic. Then we had a strike. And now at the end of this year, it feels like, I don't want to jinx anybody, but it does feel like things are picking back up.
Agreed.
And I don't think budgets are where they're going back to where they were in 2018, 2019, but there's definitely a feeling in the air of more creative approaches to budgeting and a willingness to look at, as he mentioned, how can we make our story fit virtual production approaches where it makes sense in a way that's more efficient.
Amazing.
Can I actually just
go ahead.
add one, because you touched on something really important, and I completely agree with you. The budgets are not going back up, right? Like, we just had a good little bubble at the box office, but it's not stable. We understand that audience consumption of media is completely different than it was even 2 years ago, right? And everybody's really skittish, but there's still that demand for really high concept, really high quality, big, in-your-face content. And that's true for advertising as much as it is for film and TV. The commercials we see, they still want anthem spots with 5, 10, 15 locations, but they don't have the budget for it. They have the budget for 1 day or 2 days, and they still want to make Star Wars shows that should cost $300 million for $150 million, right? And that's what I think is really special. That's how we're all going to win this game, is that when you really get down to it, there's very few ways to skin that cat, and virtual production is by far the leader in a way that can allow everybody to be happy. You get really impactful, really compelling images. You can save time dramatically if you do it right. You're saving on costs for visual effects, for location moves, for schedule, all of these things. And that's what I'm most excited about with virtual production, because I see the opportunity there, and especially with the incredible content that's being produced within this arena.
And I just want to stay here and ask you, Nathan, because budgets are integral to everything we do in virtual production and production itself. But you come from the global scale of having worked on stages all around the world, and now you're here in LA, so welcome to LA. He just joined us from Australia. But, what are you seeing globally with the budgets in virtual production?
Look, it's a really interesting time because, as we know, everyone is focusing on how they can get a return. Theatrical is tough. So if you're looking in the film space, everyone is looking to de-risk by lowering their budget and therefore getting into the black sooner. And so most of the studios are sort of, I wouldn't say it's a rule, but certainly a guideline to look international first because of exchange rate benefits, to look at incentives, improvements, things like that. And so really virtual production has to be a global sector to be effective, because it needs to be where people need to deliver it. But you know, the bottom line on all of this sort of stuff, and this is where it sort of sometimes gets lost, and I completely agree with what Justin was saying just before around there's so many good stories to be told with what virtual production can do for a budget. For example, actually, the other day we were costing up a script from a studio that had been costed at around 125 million or something like that. And by leaning into virtual production in that particular proposal, we could get it down to about $75 or $80 million, which is a huge saving, and for a production really is a massive boon in terms of de-risking, de-leveraging their output on that show or that film. But that's not going to be every project.
That's like a 25% reduction.
Absolutely. And so, but the next one, it might be cost neutral. The next one, it might be cost neutral, but you get some really strong benefits in how the crew can collaborate, or the actors feel like they're really within a really intense scene, like we saw with Masters of the Air, that idea of doing fly-throughs and really feeling like they're in these planes from the World War that they were depicting in that. It was one of these things where you've really got to align not just to a budget saving, but also to whether you're improving execution, you're improving performance, you're improving your environmental credentials on the show itself, you know, stopping multiple production moves and moving to different regions. The greenhouse gas output of those sorts of moves alone is tremendously high. And so you've really got to have a reason for doing all of these things. And yes, sometimes you can save a lot of money as well, but it's very much about why you're doing it and making sure you're going into it with a really clear picture of your motivation.
Thank you, Nathan. Let's jump into the Synapse reel, please. Justin, that just reminded me that I haven't touched my Peloton in quite some time. You just reminded me. I want to move into AI. You know, how is AI being integrated into virtual production workflows, and what do you think the future holds? We'll start with you, Justin.
AI is great for virtual production. We, at Synapse, we understand what's happening with virtual production. We are reluctant to believe that our community and the public at large is going to completely abandon the idea of human performers working with artists that are writing, directing in front of and behind the camera. That's going to age me very, very quickly, I know, but that's where we stand with it. We also understand how effective and efficient a tool it is. There's no doubt about it. We use it every day. We use it every day for our business, for our communication, and for creating art. And that's one of the things that's most incredible about it in virtual production is there's more inroads to utilize AI in virtual production than there are in any other form of content creation. And that's something that we're leaning into. What we're seeing with Nerfs and Gaussian splats, what companies like Kubrick are doing, and Project Runway, being able to really utilize it in a way that allows us to still keep the core of virtual production with people working within an environment, but instead of having to go out and acquire live action plates, or even though Unreal is getting better and better, and Unreal using it as well, lean into other forms of AI that can help to create these really incredible backgrounds.
And Brian, what is Fuse's approaches to AI, or some of the clients maybe that approach you lately with content?
Well, AI is a pretty broad term, you know. Some people consider if you write a script that automates some processes, that's AI. And you know, Rick is sitting here. If it runs on a NVIDIA GPU, it's AI. You know, Epic uses DLSS in the engine to upscale, you know, renders. You know, we use things like Stable Diffusion to create depth maps from monocular images or stereo images. That helps us with our depth-based rendering in our Iris engine. I don't know, did people see Jared's presentation yesterday? Anyone? So we have some in-house initiatives to build rendering engines specifically for LED volumes, and AI tools are part of that.
Okay.
And certainly we
saw Iris yesterday that you guys are building. Amazing.
And certainly we're looking at you know, Gaussian splats and whatever comes after that as a method to deliver photoreal volumetric content for
All about photoreal, right?
It really is.
AJ, how about your studio?
Yeah, I mean, I guess we approach it like, you know, AI is like having a PhD level assistant at everything you do, you know, and for us, since we do a lot of commercial work and we don't really have, unless we're on a television series where you have that long period for a VAD pipeline, you're working with 2 weeks, and it really limits what you can do. So being able to use AI to help automate processes, much like he's saying here, and make things happen faster, that's the biggest way that it's been helping us lately. I think there's obviously a battle that's going to be waged for a while over, you know, are we going to take care of our artists, or are we not going to take care of our artists? And I think that we're going to always stand on the sidelines of that and try to protect the artists. But at the moment, there are plenty of ways to use AI where you're not using other people's work. And that's what we've been exploring and using, you know, writing code into Unreal, like you were mentioning as well, and just, you know, trying to just get to the end faster for these commercial clients. You know, even not even using AI, but some of the things like Alex Pierce, who's giving a speech in the other room, making sim plates where, you know, these car plates that look pretty photoreal, they're just, you know, rendered out of Octane, and you can get custom work. They look great. I mean, we just shot with them this week for a Hyundai commercial, and I stand by them. I think they look fantastic. So.
And what's Nant's approach?
Yeah, I think when it comes to AI, I think there is a few different sort of areas or chapters that we can sort of look at as being instantly valuable. Administrative is the clear and away favorite of mine, because I just hate the administrative side of of everything I do. And so the more that we can speed up and automate those processes, the more people that are working on a production get to focus on the creative, the execution, things like that. So I think that's just one area that makes just so much sense. The other side is, I think, communicating intent, I think, is a really valuable thing that AI is starting to do. It's giving people the ability to be able to express a visual idea that they have to others and communicate that in a way that helps others understand and produce what they need them to. Not all of us have the ability to create something with our hands or our software tools that communicates what's in our mind, and AI does give some of us that ability to do that. And I think that is speeding up some of those early development and iterative cycles that happen early on. The main thing I think is that there's always, in my mind, a human hand that is saying, yes, that is good, no, that's not, I want more of that, I want less of that, and that process, yes, AI can help that along and fine-tune that, but you still got that human design sensibility that is saying, this is good, this is not good, this is part of the project and what we want this project to look and feel like for our audiences, and this moves us further away from that. And I don't see that part of it changing. I know AI will be a part of nearly everything we do in the future, but the question is, is there still that human hand and human eye guiding it? And I would say yes.
Thank you. Can you cue the last video, please?
There is a stillness, a sort of peace when you know you're ready. When you and the car are one. What you feel, it feels. What you see, it sees.
Good evening, officers. Carroll Industries welcomes you to our team for the night.
But in a race, there are only two guarantees. There will be a moment when you will start, and one when you will stop. But what lies in between, well, that is where everything is possible.
Point 2 and closing, gotta push.
I got him.
Thank you for that. Well, we've seen a lot of content from all of your reels. Content is often a challenge for anyone wanting to get into virtual production. So I'd love to start with you, Brian, is how does Fuse educate their clients about content? Are there partners that you work with specifically, or what's been your process mostly for supplying the volume with content?
Well, it all starts with story, obviously. So, we typically take in scripts along with, the first conversations that we have with clients, and we look over, what's appropriate for volume work, what sort of volume work might it be, car process.
So do you help, there is many producers in the room, do you help them break down their scripts and say this is a great shot for virtual production, or what's your process?
Yeah, we can help break it down. We've written tools to do a first pass digest on a script and give us, an inventory of locations and characters and sorts of action that need to happen. If we have storyboards, great. If we don't, then, we sort of work with those unknowns in mind and provide suggestions on how best to craft certain scenes for use on a volume.
Great. So AJ, we just saw a bunch of car process there. Want to tell us about how that client came to you and how you produce the content for the solution?
Absolutely. That was actually a really fun project that was produced by David Ayer, and they came to us very early on because they knew that the idea of this show was going to have to take place in a volume. It takes place all over the world, and there's an interactive component to it that means that there's going to be post happening the week before the next episode comes out. So generally, there was no real way to do that. So basically, they developed the system for it. We helped with that, and then and shot this pilot. And everything that was on the screen was all in the stage, so there was nothing outdoors. And it came to having filmmakers that were open to the process and saying, "You tell us what you think. Like, how would you approach this?" And when people have that attitude, I feel like you're winning already, right? You're not having to sell anybody. So that was a really fun one for us.
Amazing. And Justin, what's the approach to content for your studio?
Part of our business model is based on vertically integrating all the offerings within virtual production. So we have a VAD department. We also have an extended network that we work with other VAD teams. Sort of the one throat to choke approach. If a client's going to be coming in, they don't know what they don't know. They're just looking for a solution. We can provide the stage, the consulting, the VAD, all of these things. So the first stop in that exploration is just understanding the why, right? Like, what are you trying to achieve? What's the problem? Let's really understand what the mission here is. After having the opportunity to see what the goals of the project are, we can begin to explore or prescribe different avenues for success. Sometimes that's providing VAD, sometimes it isn't. It's all of these other things. As I mentioned earlier, we're also a group of filmmakers, so creating content within our studio that's self-produced is also a great source of pride for all of us. We love it. It's our sandbox, and it also allows us to continue to innovate, understand how to better the technology. So it's kind of a flywheel of things where we're doing what we love. We're understanding how to adapt and change the technology for the betterment of serving clients that then come to us that we're able to create a business out of.
And over at Nant, I think one of the very first projects I knew that you guys had done was with the director, Elijah Allen Blitz. He did the Disney Plus kind of interactive experience, which we showcased last year as a panel. How do clients approach you with their content, be it from the studio or just from a producer themselves?
Yeah, look, it can come in many different forms, and a lot of the time it's just having those very early conversations, as we were saying before, to try to, fit the approach to the idea. And I think the most positive thing that any of us on this stage or in the audience can do is say very clearly and very early when virtual production is the worst possible approach. Saying that virtual production can do everything is never a good answer for any of us. As tempting as it might be from a business perspective to do that, the outcome is always worse. And I think that's something that the industry widely has learnt over time. So those early conversations are really important. But then you have, a few different options when it comes to content. I think the trend in the early days was that everyone would say, no, this has to be 3D no matter what. And over time, that has sort of evened up or gone the other way towards 2D content because of the cost. The knowing what it's good for and what it's not good for means that you can really bank savings where you don't need 3D necessarily. And then you've got the idea of where you go for content in terms of, do you go to a third party? Do you go for a vertically integrated solution? Nant Studios also has a really great VAD team that does some incredible work. A little tip, if you go for a vertically integrated team, they will test their work on their own wall over and over and over again because the artist wants to see their stuff look great. And so you do get free sort of pre-light testing involved in that as well. But there is something... What's that, sorry?
Don't tell them that.
So that is look, a benefit. You will get something that works on that facility and is tested within an inch of its life to work incredibly well. But I think one other tip I would give is just look for teams that have real time as the basis of their entire pipeline, and all of the skill sets are really aimed at that within the team. We have had situations in the past where it would be, potentially a large name that works in the content space that goes, yep, we can do this area, and they make something that looks incredible. Like, it is this beautiful, stunning thing that runs at 4 frames a second, and you're like, we can't do anything with this. And so optimization is just as important as what it looks like, because if it's a still picture, it's not much use to anyone.
All right, so I'm going to join you all in the audience. I want to ask some questions. We have 4 amazing minds up here on the stage. So where's my first question? All right, all the way in the back. You're going to make me run to you. Okay, I'm coming. Here we go. Meet me halfway.
Hi there. I have a two-parter question. What will the impact of ST2110 have on the virtual production world and filmmaking workflows? And then as a follow-up, I'd love to hear your thoughts on the benefits versus adoption cost of 2110 in gear, but also in education and specialization in the virtual production world.
So something light to start with, I guess.
I can jump on that for a start. I'm sure you'll all want to dive in on that too. But so our new studio, the modular one, is also SMPTE 2110 compliant throughout the pipe. And in testing that, it's been a lot to get that operational and functional, because it is, still relatively new when you're going top to bottom. But what we're seeing is these incredible improvements in what we can throw on the wall and the optimizations that we can make to make these scenes far more complex. Things like playing with some fun ideas, like having huge amounts of metahumans wandering around in scenes and things like this, being able to do some live feedback between the wall and a motion capture performer and a real life performer. There's some really cool things that we've sort of started playing around with on our facility there. And so while I think there's a lot of time to go to really see how much improvement we can get through that additional pipe is going to be the foundation of what we do next with virtual production, I think.
Yeah, certainly the promise is there. I don't think the ecosystem is quite caught up to the promise yet, but we're looking forward to a future when we can get away from these old-fashioned interconnects.
All right, we have a question right here.
Well, as president of SMPTE, I'd like to say thank you to the person who asked the question about 2110. And I'd like to say thank you to Nathan. As far as Brian is concerned, I would love to talk with you about what you think is missing so that we can start working on that infrastructure as well.
I'll come find you.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, I'm going to jump.
I could also add, just while she's running, that I think that getting to SMPTE 2110 across all of our studios is going to be a huge step in the right direction, because right now every virtual production stage is a science experiment and everyone's doing it differently. So like if our ops team shows up somewhere else to operate, we got to figure out where the bodies are buried before we can do anything. So it's better if we just know, oh, this is the process. Great. Everybody knows what's going on in every stage.
Thank you for making yourselves available, and it's great to see you all sort of together as a part of an industry, and we should do more of this. This is really great. Thank you very much. So you have a front row seat to the evolution of the production design, and I just was wondering whether or not you're seeing where are the new designs coming from? Because I've seen the evolution between a season 1 and a season 2, where the design team suddenly goes, oh, are you seeing, what's the ratio of the old designers thinking of new things and the new talent coming in? What are your viewpoints?
I'll start. We're seeing now many more production designers getting excited about this and wanting to get involved and coming to us and saying, I really want to try, X, Y, or Z. Can I come to your stage and can we use it as a sandbox? A lot of that world, they're still in Rhino, and so there's a bit of a translation that comes along with adapting their output for use on these stages. But it's a collaboration that was, in the past a little bit hesitant, but now, a more full-throated enthusiasm for it.
Sorry to cut you off thought you had finished, but I just want to jump in and say it's really cool because we're seeing some of them designing in Unreal now, which is fantastic, right? Like they're able to truly understand how the VAD will integrate with the physical production design that they're bringing in, but just the understanding of the viability of this technology to see people come in and whether it's their first time, whether it's a production designer or anyone else, and have that light bulb moment where they're like, oh shit, like the wall's gonna do all of that and now I only need to do this thing. I can design it the way I want. I can do all this. I don't need to worry about the lumber cost or the week to build it or all these other things. So in many ways, it's awesome to see that inspiration come back and that, like I said, that light bulb go off, but also lean into the technology where we've seen some come back a few different times and every time they're better and better at using Unreal where they're like, I want to get to the point where we're able to contribute to making the content on the walls as well.
Can I just quickly jump in on that too? I think our industry was really naive in the early days. And the reason I think that is because we were all interested in the technology. And so we jumped 2 feet into it because we're all sort of innovatively minded and don't mind change. And we kind of forgot that everyone's not like us, I think. And it's a really confronting thing to expect someone who is an expert in their trade and knows exactly what to ask for to achieve a certain outcome to then go into a situation where they don't know what to ask for and they don't know who to talk to. That's a really confronting experience. And so we saw a lot of people at the top of their game opt out of that. And over time, you break down those walls and you get to a point where now you're starting to see, those walls crumble down and people that were holdouts, jump into it and really sort of either one toe or 1 foot or one leg at a time, jump into the water. And I think we really need to look at sort of that top-down and bottom-up approach. As you were saying we've had some young directors come through who have prevised their own works before they've done anything. They've got a script and they start prevising the whole thing in engine and then come and present that to us and say, okay, this is what we're wanting to achieve here. And it's just sensational. Like you just have this instant communication. You know that they know what they need to ask for and they're dynamically minded and they're ready to go. And we're seeing that from the top two, and sometimes it might be a veteran DOP getting someone in to help and work in real time to actually help communicate the ideas and to understand the terminology. But those two sort of dynamics of that sort of top-down and bottom-up approach, I think we're all going to meet in the middle and we're going to get to that point where we're not having these conversations over and over again where we're slowly walking someone through it and it's, important work and it's powerful, but eventually we're going to be speaking the same language.
I would also like to jump in and say we're recently working with a studio that is pre-planning. So they're just in a pilot and they sent us all around England to prepare for the what if, to prepare for the series. So, scanning, photogrammetry and the like, and just having that files, the data ready to go for the what if.
These couple of days have been so well programmed, and thank you, 4 gentlemen on stage, for taking the time to prepare this and share your work with us. It's the end of the year. What was the project that you delivered this year that you're most proud of, most emblematic of what you do?
Ooh, I like it. What was the project you were most proud of in 2024?
I'll go first. So there's a project that I'm, on behalf of our team, super proud of. I can't say a whole lot about it. It's not
the
released
curse
yet.
of our
I'm going to
industry.
guess that's going to be a common refrain you hear, but it is the best looking in-camera visual effects work that I personally have seen so far. So reach out to me and I will let you know when that's coming out, when we can say more about it. But shot here in town.
Awesome.
And it was spectacular.
Justin, what about you?
Mine's kind of a cheat to answer the question because we opened our LA studio this year and that was a major project on its own. Being able to put the team together, our staff are the most incredible and talented people in the world, and everything has just been humming since the minute we opened. I'm incredibly proud of it. It's by far the greatest project that we've had.
And AJ?
So we just wrapped on a project that I can talk a little bit about because we co-produced it, so nobody can yell at me. But it's called The Man Who Was There, and it's about a Nazi rally that happened in 1939 at Madison Square Garden, and a person that came in and disrupted it, and what happened to him. And so it was a period piece. It was shot on film. It just looks beautiful. It'll be coming out next year, and yeah, I was in tears most days watching it because it was just beautiful.
Nathan?
I've got two that come to mind. So one was a Universal show down in Melbourne, in our studio down in Melbourne. And the reason I really liked it is because it wasn't that stereotypical VP project that, that sci-fi thing that, wildly stylized, that, whatever it is, all those stereotypes that come to mind when you think of a typical VP show. It's a slow, intense thriller drama that's mostly set in one lake house. And so what they did is built the better part of this lake house. Unfortunately, this lake house was mostly glass, and so they built it in the middle of the volume, and they did most of the show there. And the ability for them to be able to dial in the time of day, the weather, all of those things were really critical to the show. And to be able to dial those in and just shoot really, really tight, really effective, really budget-conscious kind of work with that level of detail that they could never get if they were sort of doing it later, I think was just sensational to see. And there were some really cool innovations in how they allowed that tracking to move in and out of the house seamlessly, so they could do these long sort of walk and talks through this building. Those sorts of things I think are critical because they show other uses for virtual production other than the stereotype. So I absolutely love that. The other one is a completely different one, which is an advertising group that's come back to Nant in El Segundo. I think they're up to their 8th time now or something like this. And every time they come back with pretty much the same set, which is saved on our hard drive, and they load it up, and they have one desk, and they roll that one desk in, and they shoot 2 ads in a day. They smash them out for an incredibly low price, and they keep this same series going over and over and over again. And rather than building sets every time and then storing them somewhere and then rolling them back out again, they just have this machine. And because they've come back time and time and time again, and it's this long-running series of ads, they are absolutely saving a fortune. I think they said $90,000 for every ad just in construction costs alone, every time that they're doing it in this way. And so that kind of, I suppose, project, when you see someone just come back over and over and over and over again, have a great time, they come in, they're just, oh, yep, hey, they're like part of the family nearly. And that kind of dynamic, I think, is brilliant. So that's the other one.
That's a great case of sustainability as well. I think that's a great, profound. So, okay, one last question. And I'm going to preface this. This is going to be the last question of Production Summit. So it's got to be a really good one. Who's got it? Who's epic question? All right, we'll do it.
No pressure.
No pressure. I just want to say thank you guys so much. I'm actually based out of Tokyo, Japan, and been following all 4 of your studios. And yeah, just the innovations you guys are coming up is really kind of seeing across the world. And the 4 of you, you have your own studios. What makes kind of like your studio kind of like unique, and like what's the competitive advantage that you guys have kind of over each other? I'm curious.
Back to what we were talking about earlier with chicken.
Well, if I could say something, I would say that the thing about virtual production that I've noticed with all of you and also all the other stages like Tim from View and JT when he had XR Studio is it's a very collaborative environment. It's not a very competitive environment. We all support each other. In fact, there are many meetings that we have. We're all part of the SIMPTE RIS groups. We're all, several studio owners and I have a monthly meeting where we talk about, what's working, what's not, like what business are you getting, what are you not, and you guys, if you're not already a part of it, are welcome to it. I think that there's a thing where we all realize that virtual production is not going away. It's only going to get bigger, and there's plenty of work for all of us. And I think when we get to a point where there is no competitive advantage, where we're all kind of on the same playing field, it's going to be better for everybody, because then it's not, wait a minute, where am I this week, and what's their pixel pitch, and what's the, it's like, let's get to a point where it's at least something you can count on wherever you go, you're going to get. That's my political way of answering the question, but
Look, I would echo that, AJ, too. I think, we're all in this space because we bloody love virtual production. We love what it feels like to execute. We love the kind of conversations that we have with producers and creative talent to be able to make something come to life that they didn't think they could either do for their budget or their process or to that level of execution. And that's why we're all in it. And so why would we fight over that? Like, we just want to see more people use virtual production and more people have the passion for it that we do, and over time to stop having conversations about whether virtual production deserves to exist and start having those conversations about how can we continue to make it better over and over and over again. And so I suppose that competitive advantage is really about how can we as a team come together to improve the process, to improve the experience that clients have, so that we as a whole rise.
Brian?
Well, all right, so your question was competitive advantage, and I agree with everything that's been said up here. And also, I'll just drop a little grenade. I'm not sure the term virtual production is doing us all favors. It's a bit broad. So, what I like to say is, like, what we do is not virtual production, it's just production. And so one of the strengths of this outfit is we have a lot of people who've done a lot of time on production. And so, we all show up, we're there from call time to wrap. We're all moving at the pace of production. And so that's like job number one, right? In my previous life, I worked on shows that looked very different from a standard production. Has anyone seen The Polar Express? So that to me that's virtual production. We didn't have that term at the time, but you did virtual characters, virtual camera, virtual costumes, virtual makeup. What we're all doing for the most part is production. You have real cameras, real sets, real lights, and we need to be there and do our job and disappear.
Justin, anything to add?
I agree with everything that everyone here has said. I think that we have the most incredible team in the world, so if it was anything, it would be that. But I've got a tremendous amount of respect. We all have mutual respect, and really, I may have even more for you guys. I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for all the hard work that you and your teams have done. You guys have been the trailblazers of this industry. You guys were the ones taking the biggest risks earlier on, the perseverance through the toughest times of this industry. So we're going to keep growing. We're going to keep evolving together. That's what's so cool about it, and we're all really excited to see what happens.
Well, Brian, thank you. It's just production, and that is a wrap on Production Summit, everyone. I cannot thank our sponsors enough for continuing to support Production Summit for the third year. Microsoft, NVIDIA, AMD, thank you so much for your support. Hopefully we can come back next year, all get together and do the same thing again.